What happens when a beloved acting legend sits down for what should be a friendly chat about his latest film, only to find himself face to face with one of the most disrespectful hosts in television history? In just 41 seconds, Carol McGiffin would utter the words that would not only end Michael Caine's interview, but destroy her own reputation in the most spectacular fashion imaginable. The ITV studios were buzzing that Tuesday morning as the Loose Women panel prepared for what everyone assumed would be a delightful conversation with Sir Michael Caine. The 87-year-old acting icon had graciously agreed to appear on the show to discuss his new memoir and reflect on his incredible 7-decade career in Hollywood. What nobody could have predicted was that this routine interview would become the most talked about television moment of the year. Carol McGiffin sat in her usual seat, surrounded by Ruth Langsford, Janet Street Porter, and Colleen Nolan. As the cameras rolled and the theme music faded, Ruth smiled warmly at the audience. "Good morning and welcome back to Loose Women. We are absolutely thrilled to be joined by the one and only Sir Michael Caine." Michael, elegant in a navy suit, nodded graciously. "Always lovely to be here with you ladies." The interview began smoothly. Ruth asked about his new book, his early life in London, and his thoughts on British cinema. Michael spoke with charm and wisdom, sharing stories from his journey from Maurice Micklewhite to becoming one of Britain's greatest actors. The panel listened with admiration. But then, the tone shifted. Carol, who had been unusually quiet, leaned forward. There was an edge in her voice that immediately changed the room. "That's all very nice, Michael. But can we talk about something more interesting? We've heard these stories before." Ruth shot her a sharp look. The studio went still. Michael, ever composed, replied politely, "I'm not sure what you mean." Carol smirked. "Well, you're nearly 90. Don't you think it's time to step aside and let younger actors have their moment? How many more films do you really need to make?" The panel froze in shock. Janet looked horrified. Colleen gasped. The audience fell into uncomfortable silence. Michael maintained calm dignity. "I don't believe age determines whether someone continues doing what they love." But Carol doubled down, saying he was taking roles from younger actors. Ruth tried to stop her, but Carol pushed forward, insisting that she was saying what everyone else was thinking. The tension tightened. Michael offered her a chance to pull back, but she refused. What began as a friendly interview had become a simmering storm, and no one knew just how explosive it was about to become. Carol leaned back in her chair, her smirk growing wider as she sensed the shock spreading across the studio. Instead of apologizing, she pushed harder. "Let's be honest. Old actors hanging on past their sell-by date. It's embarrassing." The room froze. Janet looked as if she might explode. Colleen covered her mouth in disbelief. Ruth attempted to intervene, but Michael gently lifted a hand. "Let her finish," he said calmly. "I'd like to hear exactly what she wants to say." Carol took that as permission to launch into a full attack. "You haven't made a decent film in years. The Dark Knight, 15 years ago. Everything since then, forgettable. You're taking up space that should go to actors who are actually relevant." Her tone was sharp, loud, almost triumphant. She wasn't criticizing, she was provoking. Michael's expression stayed calm, though his eyes hardened ever so slightly. "And your assessment is based on what?" "Your extensive experience in film." Carol scoffed. "I don't need to be in film to see when someone's overstaying their welcome. I'm a TV presenter. I know entertainment." Janet finally snapped. "How dare you speak to Sir Michael like that? He's a knight of the realm." "Oh, spare me." Carol cut her off. "Titles, awards, ancient history. What matters is what he's doing now." Every person in the studio recognized that Carol was spiraling, but she didn't. She continued, accusing Michael of clinging to fame, of being pathetic, of being terrified of irrelevance. Her words stung the air like needles. Still, Michael held his composure. Slowly, he placed his hands on the arms of his chair. "If you're not interested in a respectful conversation, perhaps I should leave." But Carol only got louder. "Go ahead. Prove my point." The producers behind the cameras were pale. The audience murmured in discomfort. The panelists were torn between anger and disbelief. Michael finally rose. He looked at Ruth, Janet, and Colleen. "Ladies, thank you. It's been a pleasure." Carol seized her moment to deliver one more blow. "That's right, run away." Michael paused, turning back toward her. And for the first time, his voice carried a cold, solemn weight. In all my decades of work, I have never met someone with such a complete lack of basic human decency. Carol scoffed, but a flicker of doubt cracked through her confidence. Michael continued, his voice steady. Experience has value. Respect has value. You seem to know nothing about either. The panel sat stunned. And for the first time, it became clear the interview was no longer the scandal. Carol was. Carol tried to regain control, her voice rising as she attempted to appear confident again. I'm just being honest. Someone needs to say it. Everyone babies these old actors. Michael calmly picked up his jacket. Carol, what you've done here today isn't honesty. It's cruelty. Oh, please, she fired back. You've been coasting on your reputation for years. I'm the only one brave enough to say it out loud. Michael chuckled, not warmly but knowingly. You call this bravery? No, Carol. This is insecurity shouting at dignity. Carol's confidence wavered again. Her eyes darted to her co-hosts, searching for backup. But every face told the same story, disapproval. Janet shook her head. You're being vicious, Carol. Not honest. Carol snapped back, trying to reclaim her footing. Vicious? For pointing out the truth? Michael hasn't been relevant in a long time. Michael stepped closer, not aggressively, but with the poise of a seasoned professional who had finally run out of patience. Tell me, Carol, have you even watched my last 3 films? Carol froze. The silence was brutal. Michael waited. The panel waited. The audience waited. Carol opened her mouth, then shut it. The answer was obvious. Michael nodded. I thought so. You're not criticizing my work. You're attacking my existence. Janet and Colleen exchanged glances. Ruth attempted to interject again, but the moment had already overtaken her. Michael continued, his tone firmer now. You confuse loudness with truth. You confuse rudeness with bravery. And you confuse cruelty with honesty. Carol tried to interrupt. Michael raised a hand, not rudely, but with authority. Not yet. I'm not finished. What you've done today is reveal your own bitterness. It's plain to see. Carol's face reddened deeply, a mixture of anger and humiliation. You can't talk to me like that. Can I not? Michael replied softly. Because you seemed quite comfortable talking to me however you pleased. Janet exhaled sharply, as if relieved someone was finally saying what needed to be said. Carol looked around again for support and found none. Her colleagues were no longer defending her, not even politely. Michael took a deep breath. Honest criticism comes from understanding. You've shown none. The audience murmured again, sensing the shift completely in Michael's favor. Carol pointed at him desperately. You're twisting everything. I'm trying to have a real conversation. Michael shook his head. Then allow me to give you advice. Real conversation requires respect. And respect is something you abandon the moment you opened your mouth. Carol's expression collapsed into a mix of rage and shame. And in that moment, the broadcast crossed from awkward to unforgettable. Michael finally slipped on his jacket as Carol spiraled into frustration. She tried clinging to the last scraps of control. Fine. Leave. That just proves you can't handle the truth. Michael turned back one final time. His face was calm. Almost too calm. Carol, I'm not walking away from truth. I'm walking away from cruelty. There's a difference, though I doubt you'll ever understand it. The panelists looked devastated. Ruth's professional mask was barely holding together. Colleen's eyes were glassy. Janet seemed ready to walk out herself. The audience murmured louder now, their sympathy overwhelmingly with Michael. Carol, realizing she was losing everything, lashed out again. Oh, look at him. Acting all noble. You've been irrelevant for years. Michael sighed, not in defeat, but disappointment. Carol, you've spent the last 10 minutes insulting me, but all you've really done is expose yourself. Carol blinked, thrown off. Expose myself? How? Michael took a step forward. The studio went silent. Because anyone watching, this will see exactly what you are. Someone who mistakes cruelty for honesty, who confuses loudness with relevance, and who tears others down in a desperate attempt to feel important. Carol opened her mouth, but nothing came out. He continued, You said I cling to relevance. But today, Carol, you clung to cruelty. And it cost you far more than you realize. The words hit her like a blow. She stared at him, stunned, almost trembling. Michael nodded to Ruth, Janet, and Colleen. Thank you, ladies. I appreciate your professionalism. He turned toward the exit. But Carol, unable to accept her loss, yelled, "That's right. Walk away like all old people do." The audience gasped. Michael stopped, slowly, deliberately, then turned around with the weight of 7 decades behind his voice. "In all my years, working with difficult directors, angry producers, impossible actors, I have never encountered someone with so little respect for another human being." Carol's facade shattered completely. Ruth slammed her cards down. "Carol, enough." Janet shook her head, disgusted. "I can't believe what you've done." Michael looked at Carol one last time. "You wanted honesty? Here it is. You didn't expose me today. You exposed yourself." With that, he left the set, calm, dignified, unbroken. The cameras kept rolling. Carol sat in stunned silence, her career unraveling live on national television. Ruth finally faced the camera. "We'll be right back after the break." But everyone watching knew the truth. A break wouldn't fix this. Carol McGiffin had ended Michael's interview, but she had ended her own reputation far more completely.